reaction button. And I just want to draw attention to the fact that this meeting will be recorded. If you have concerns regarding this, please let us know, and we shall be able to address that. It will be recorded for future purposes and for other learning purposes. Please let us know if you have issues with you being recorded during this meeting. Okay, and just the final one, please be cautious while you're at this meeting. We are all humans and we are all here to learn. Please let us try to behave accordingly to every member of this training, to every member of this class, I would call it. Yes, so I will go forward to introduce to you the founder of our award. He's right here. And I guess he would have a word for us since this is the first day, of course, of the training. It's part of my background. I guess he would have a word for us. And yeah, Mr. Paul, please, the floor is yours. Oh, yeah. Mr. Paul Ayomide, the floor is yours.
Okay. Even though you caught me off guard. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the very first day of a women and ocean conservation training. Apologies, I'm unable to enable my video now, but soon I'm going to do that. And also, I want to give big kudos to the Foreign Up team for building this, for cooking this wonderful program to enhance the capacity of women in ocean conservation. And we're looking forward to, having an impactful session. And well done, Judith, for moderating today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please pardon my background. In a few minutes, it will be clear. I hope I'm still audible enough. I think we'll have to go straight now to the training, but before then, I would like to give a bio of the speaker, and if you don't mind, I would like to share my screen so you could see that. Okay, so we'll be having today Ms. Tosin Fashagba, who is a Nigerian enthusiastic environmentalist and is passionate about the aquatic environment and has over 3 years of experience in aquatic conservation and sustainability. She was awarded the Pan-African Scholarship in 2021 to study water policy at the Pan-African Institute of Water and Energy Science, including climate change, cleansing in Algeria. As a water policy student, she's passionate about formulating and recommending effective policies to conserve and ensure the sustainable use of the aquatic environment. Currently, she is an active volunteering member of Aqua World, which is a youth-led organization whose sole aim is to save the blue planet. She was selected among 15 other African youths by the African Wildlife Foundation in partnership with UNEP for the Charles Wolf Young African Policy Fellow. And recently, she was awarded the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship in International Masters in Marine Biological Resources. She's passionate about networking and opportunities that will build her overall capacity in the conservation and sustainability of the aquatic environment. So, Ms. Tosin, we are glad to have you, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was talking. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Do I share the screen or you share the screen?
I think it would be better. I knew I was muted, sorry. So you can have full control.
Okay. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, we can see.
I mean, it's kind of. I'm coming, the network is kind of slow. I hope it shares now. Okay. Yeah, this is fine. Good evening, everyone. Fashagba, Tosin, Sarah, and I'll be having the presentation on the heart of policy brief writing. I actually call it the heart because writing policy brief is, well, I say it's kind of technical, and it's not something you can just learn in a day. It's something you gradually have to, you develop. Like it's something like when you start practicing, you get used to it. So, okay, I'll be taking you through the type of policy brief, relevant questions to be asked before developing a policy brief, what should a policy brief contain and do, and the structure of a policy brief, and then I conclude. And also during the course of this training, I will appreciate when you have a question, you can do well to drop in the chat box, or you can raise up your hand and the moderator will call you. Okay. Now, talking about a policy brief, I hope you can also see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Now, so a policy brief can be defined as a concise overview of a specific issue. When we talk about a policy brief, we're actually trying to present an issue. And this issue has to be concise. We don't bring different issues to a policy brief. You have to be direct. You have to be, should I say, straightforward. You have to be specific. I said a key tool to present research and recommendations to a non-specialized audience. Yeah, we see a policy brief as a tool, whereby we use it to present research. When you are doing a policy brief, you don't just come out of the blues and say, this is what I want to say, or this is what I want to present to people. No, it's actually based on empirical information. It's based on evidence that you have. That is, you'd have done some previous research. You'd have been sure, okay, this is what are my findings. And then from your findings, you made some specific recommendations which aligns to those particular issues you detected. And I also talked about non-specialized audience in the sense that in a policy brief, the people you are communicating to are not necessarily the people in your field. You are talking about the politicians, the policymakers, different kinds of people. So in this kind of context, you have to make sure you communicate to them, not using jargons. Yeah, we call it jargons. Like this, you don't use some scientific terms, or maybe you talk about when you're using all these big grammars. So you have to be very simple as possible. Okay, I move to the next line. So clear and concise and standalone documents. When I talk about a standalone document, I'm referring to like, we're still talking about a single issue. That is, the document must be expressing a particular point of view, a single topic. Express the research findings in a clear language and link them to policy initiative. When you are drafting a policy brief is a kind of a document whereby everything you are actually presenting must be clear. You don't have to prove to us that, oh, you understand grammar or you've read so much. You have to be plain as possible. And like I said, for the last point, it is aimed at government, policymakers, and others who are interested in formulating or influencing policy. So when you are preparing a policy brief, rather, you have to put it in mind that you are talking to the government, policymakers, people who are not in your field. So you have to be very simple as possible. You have to make sure they understand you, and you have to be very clear. Now, Still on the policy brief, we talk about it must be specific, the audience, like I said earlier. And then when you talk about it can be broad or narrow, but make sure your audience are very specific. And your length, like I said, policy brief does not need to be very long. Although we have some cases where a policy brief might be long, those are other issues. But for this, we are actually majoring on the normal policy brief, and the length is usually 4 pages or less, and is single spaced, and approximately 1,500 to 2,000 words. Okay, I also said some can be 6 to 8 pages. That is for the other one I talked about. And also one thing about policy brief is distinctive by urging people to make action. Yeah, I can say persuasive. What's the main purpose of doing policy brief? You're trying to persuade others to buy into your idea. Like, oh, this is what I want. Can you join me to advocate for this particular thing? So whenever you are doing a policy brief, you don't just make a policy brief without making it making it persuasive. You have to make people come to give you the action you want. Now, there are 2 types of policy brief. We have the advocacy policy brief and objective brief. Like I said, once I'll be talking about it, and with the examples I mentioned, is majorly advocacy, because when you're advocacy for a point, okay, I might say, okay, I want to advocate for maybe a particular marine protected areas in Lagos, or maybe in a particular part in the southern part of Nigeria. That is like an advocacy brief. So you're arguing a particular course of action. But when you talk about objective brief is somehow different. It's a kind of brief whereby probably you've done a lot of research and you have different policy options. So from these options, you're trying to tell people, or let the government or the people you want to inform, these are the options. So these are the options, and they have to look at these options. You are giving them a kind of information of what is available. So it's like giving balanced information for policymakers so they can choose or to make up their mind about a particular option. So those are the type of brief. We have the advocacy brief and the objective brief. So please, if you have a question, you can call me back or just raise your hand. Thank you. So, yeah, let's move to the relevant. The relevant question we should ask for the policy brief. Now, this is also very important. Like I said, when you want to draft a policy brief or you want to prepare a policy brief, you don't just have to just come up. You have to think, okay, does this really need a policy brief? The first one is, how current is the issue? Yeah. You look at the issue, is it so current? You can see these days now, we have many issues around climate change, pollution, plastics. We have deforestation, desertification. So these are environmental issues. We have to look at these issues. Which of these is of more interest to us? Which one is current? Because when an issue is not actually current, or you're trying to bring this issue to the public, it would not actually receive the particular attention it's supposed to receive. So firstly, we have to look at how current is the issue. Is it so current? It's very important. Then we'll look at, does this issue spark a debate? Yeah, you will notice that most of the times, whenever we talk about climate issues, usually spark a debate outside. Even when you just mention climate, people will start saying, no, climate is met. People will say it's natural, some will say it's this. So these are kind of issues, that, when you bring about policy brief, or when you talk about pollution, people will be very interested to hear and to see what kind of innovation or what are you bringing. And another point is the issue of importance to political leaders. This is very germane because the political leaders actually play a very, very important role in policy brief. So when you are making a policy brief and your political leaders are not even interested, the policy brief cannot go anywhere. So one thing you have to know is when you have a policy brief, or you have a topic rather, you have to be sure that these leaders are very interested in this topic, that yes, they have an interest, if not the policy brief will just hang in the air. How effective are the current ideas or solutions to the social issue? Yeah, also, what are the solutions you are presenting? If after you've succeeded to the current issue, Does it spark a debate? Is the issue important to political leaders? Then you look at how effective are the current ideas or solutions to the social issue. The solutions you are bringing, are they very effective? Okay, will people buy this idea? Are they innovative? Are they really strong? So these are the things that give you strength. And don't forget that this solution should be very linked and should be based on your research findings. And also we talk about your idea, okay, is linked to the innovative. So basically you need these questions before, you need to answer these questions and be sure you answer these questions before developing a policy brief to advocate for any issue of your interest. Okay, I guess we're gonna have a short break. I don't know if there's a question before the short break.
Thank you so much for your nice presentation so far. For the audience, there's been no questions, but I have one. I would say maybe, I hope I'm not going ahead of you. But I just want to know, so we know now that policy brief is a document or is like a summary of a specific issue you've been able to identify and is capable of sparking interest in those who are concerned and the government, policymakers, and all of those people. So I just want to know, when you have been able to put this document together and you submit it, I guess, is it to the government, or how do you go about channeling this document? Because you know how tough it can be to get to the government and those people at the top. I mean, how do you channel this paper at the end of the day when you've been able to put your thoughts together and done thorough research?
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, just a little bit further, but okay, I'll just try to answer the question. Doesn't matter. Okay, after you develop your policy brief, so one thing you know is, even before you develop your policy brief, there is what we call the policy audience. So in the structure, which I will still talk about, you have who you are directing your policy briefs to. So after writing this policy brief, these are the people you're going to give your policy brief, like you're going to give to the audience, which you've already talked about in the beginning. And apart from that, you can also publish your policy brief on the media. We have social media now, whereby so people can, the general public can also see your policy brief. And this will also spark interest, not just in the audience, but also in the general public. So
okay. Thank you so much. Yes. Mr. Paul, you raised your hand. Please go ahead and ask your question. You've been asked on mute. Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Sarah. And then I think my question was in a way related to Judith's question. That was why I lowered my hand. And I just want to, just like a follow-up question, like, can policy brief be published maybe in academic journal, or is it only meant, okay, are we supposed to just maybe send, and even want to make the political maybe elite to see what we are doing? How do we approach them to show them our policy brief, and how do we get our policy brief to the table we actually want it to be? So yeah, I don't know if you get my question.
Okay, you said, can a policy brief be published, right? That was
like just like a normal article, and then if no or yes, regardless of the question, like our targeted audience, maybe the politicians, how do we get it across to them? Like, do we just send it to them through email or something like that? Yeah, so.
Okay, for the first question about if it can be published, I would say I'm not really sure, but then when I go online, I do usually see a lot of policy brief online, which are published. So I can say, yes, we can publish a policy brief. And I feel there should be a particular journal responsible for that. Yeah, and apart from these journals, from academic journal, like I said, we also publish on the media. So I feel it can be published, yeah. And for the second question, you said, can you remind me, please?
It's just a follow-up question, which like, okay, how do we really get our policy brief to the table where decisions are being made?
Oh, then that depends on you, because that is when your own effort comes in. You have to do the follow up of who are your audience. Like you have to know your policy audience. You have to be in search of their contacts, how to be able to reach them, and make sure you submit your policy brief to the right audience and not to the wrong audience.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you once again. And Okbeniko, your hand is raised. Please unmute and ask your question.
Sir, Mr. Paul has asked the majority of the questions I wanted to ask, and I'm trying to lower my hand down. It's not coming down. So, okay, I think let me ask this one. Can anybody actually write a policy brief, or do you have to have a kind of portfolio?
Oh, anybody can write a policy brief, but on the note that you must have the knowledge of writing the policy brief. You don't need to have a portfolio. Like me, I can write a policy brief today and publish it, just put it out there in the media. I can write a policy brief like advocating for a particular something in my country that I don't like and put it on my Facebook or my LinkedIn. That is another way. So there is no limit to who can write a policy brief. Apart from policy brief, we also have some other documents like the OPEDs, which are also in policies, but I didn't dive into that. Today we're just functioning on policy brief. So all these things are just your expressions to trigger people, to make people know what you are interested in, and to make people come and advocate for you. So it's not, you're not limited. Anybody can. Just have the right knowledge to put out something good.
All right.
Okay, and Aziz, your hand is raised. Please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Tosin, for the presentation. Sorry about my background, so there's noise in background. Yeah, my question is just like the policy brief, can it be targeted to all the audience, or must it have a specific audience that you want to write the policy brief to?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's still going to be further, but okay, I'll answer. When you're writing a policy brief, there's a section you put your policy audience. Then you list all the audience you make sure that policy brief wants to get to. Like, okay, for example, I want to write a policy brief I want to advocate for water in Makoko area. Establishment of some boreholes and all that in Lagos. I can say, okay, my policy audience are Lagos State Ministry of Environment, Lagos State. I'll look for those ministry that deals with even the cleaning, that deals with is it the environmental protection agencies. I have to go to Lagos and look for the ministries that are in charge of maybe the water and sanitation also. I'll look for that. If I have some, even the community members, the community head might also be part of my policy because they might have a role to play. I can also look for maybe some voluntary organization, probably ACWA might want to assist me with funds. I can put it also in that policy brief. So even if you write a policy brief, all the particular audience you're focusing on must be listed in that policy audience, and they must all have a copy of that policy brief. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one question or two questions from one person in the chat from Abibat Muntarayo. And it says, what is the relationship between policy, law, and edict? And the second question is, who are the policy? Did you get that? What is the relationship between policy, law, and edict?
Okay.
Did you get it?
Yeah,
there is a second one. Should I read it out, or you want to take the first one?
Okay, from my own knowledge, when you talk about these terms are actually kind of related. But when you say policy, policies are like decisions. And we know what laws are. Laws and edict are also still similar. In terms of law, are like, how will I put it? Laws are, should I say, it's just like, what kind of term can I use? You make laws, like things, like regulations, like things you do, you don't do. So there's a kind of relationship between them though, policy and law with other, but for me, there's mostly, when we use these words even in classes, they are mostly related. They are based on decisions. They're mainly decisions. So that's what I can say.
Okay, and the second one is, who are the policy audience to ascertain this policy? Who are the policy audience to ascertain this policy?
Who are the
Did you get it?
Your policy audience depends on you. You are the one that chooses your policy audience. You are the one writing your policy. So you know the audience you are actually going to choose. So if I'm trying to pick a topic, I know who I'm addressing it to, and those are my audience.
Okay.
I don't know if the person understands. Can the person speak out?
Did you get, was your question well answered, or you want some more clarification? You can just say yes, it's clear, or if you want to ask, you can raise your hand.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think on the second question, probably she didn't get my question right. The question is talking about, since we are writing the policy, and I don't think it's an individual stuff. Like when you write the policy, you are not only writing it for yourself. It might be for a community, a province, a state, or a zone. So for you to just say you want to enact a policy on a particular society, I think what I understand about the policy audience you mentioned was that those people will listen to it. Is it welcomed or not? Can it be implemented in such environment? That was the question I'm asking, that who are those audience to ascertain if what you've written proposed to them is accepted or not?
I get you right. I made an example like I'm advocating for marine protected areas. So my policy audience, there are those people in charge, for example, the policy makers, the ministries. Those are the people I will send to this document. Those are the people that will ascertain that policy. It's not as if I'm making the policy. No, I am just writing it to make them gear up. I am writing to inform them, to gear them, or to make them aware of this issue. And they are the ones that have the power to be able to bring up this issue. I hope you get my point. Or probably when we go on, I can show you a document, you get to understand what I mean.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been an interesting one. And we will just take a chill pill now, 5 minutes or thereabout, right? So we'll have a 5 minutes break, grab a coffee, do a chat, just do whatever you want to do, and please come back after 5 minutes. So by 7:41, we will be having the section right back on track. See you soon.
Please, who is delivering my own coffee?
Go check the coffee machine. We don't have other people's videos turned on still, but it's okay. Thank you, for answering to that. Thank you, people. Okay, I guess we'll have to continue from where we stopped. So, wonderful trainer, please continue.
Okay, welcome back. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, it's good. Okay. All right, now we'll be talking about the next slide. I hope you're all back and ready. Yeah.
I'd like to believe so. Okay.
Okay. So So still on the policy brief, we've talked about, before the break, we've talked about what is a policy brief. We've talked about what a policy brief should contain, like a brief highlights of being concise, a specific issue, the policy audience. You don't have to use big grammars. They talk about the length and yeah. So now we also move further to say, what should a policy brief do and contain? So these are just some words that will also let you know what a policy brief should be about. Number one, provide enough background for the reader to understand the problem. Yeah, in a policy brief, when we're going into the structure, you have to understand that it gives enough background for the reader to understand the problem. You don't just have a policy brief and you just say something and the person is not aware. You just come with a policy brief and you just put a solution. No. Policy brief has to go gradually. You have to introduce the problem. Convince the reader that the problem must be addressed urgently. Like what I said, you have to be persuasive. A policy brief should urge people to do something and take action, because in policy brief, you express what that particular issue is doing. Like you don't like it, and these are the effects, these are the implications. Also, provide information about alternatives. In terms of, these are your recommendations. Okay, this is the issue. What can be done? This is what a policy brief should do. Policy also should provide evidence to support one alternative. That is when you, that's for the advocacy brief. Like I said, the first one is the objective brief, because you are having different alternatives. When you have different policy options, that is objective brief. But when you have a particular thing you are advocating for, like do this, that is what we call the advocacy brief. Also, to stimulate the reader to make a decision. So whatever you are doing in a policy brief, you want that particular reader to do something about it, not just to read it and drop it, but to do it and make an action. Now, to the other side, a policy brief should be short and to the point. When you, oh, sorry, one drink. A policy brief must be short and must be, it should be focused. Like I said in the previous one, we have 4 pages and it should not be too long, 1,500 to 2,000 words, but based on evidence, like I said, it should be empirical. Okay, even there was a time I can say they gave us a task to write a policy brief, although we're not going to the field. So in this case, someone will like, okay, I will expect a question like, how did I make that kind of policy brief? In this case, what happened was we had to go into literature reviews. So depending on the particular issue I am interested in, for me to come about with a policy brief, I have to go to literatures to read what has been done about that issue, what the issue is about, on every necessary information I can get concerning that issue. But in the case where I have the opportunity to go to the field, that is, I have the opportunity to go for my research, I will be the one to carry out all the research findings and then report everything in my own terms. Focus on meanings, not on method. Readers are interested in what you have found and not what you recommended. Yeah, when you're writing a policy brief, people that are reading it, they want to see what, they want to see, like read what you've actually detected, what you've seen. Not like, this is the method I use, you start bringing about different kind of scientific method. No, they want to see what is there, like what is really happening, and related to the big picture. The policy brief may be built on a content-specific findings, but you should draw conclusions that are more generally applicable. Yeah, whatever you are doing, anything you are bringing, you must be able to like apply it. It must have solution, not something that is not real, something that is realistic. Whatever you are bringing, and don't forget this approach. Like there must be a time frame. You must be able to put all these things in place to so that it is achievable. Okay, can I go? I hope I'm not too fast.
No, you're not for me, but I have can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's on this slide, so I think it's best to ask it here.
Okay.
So when you want to go back in research, since you're going to do a literature search and all of that, how long do you have to go back in time? 5 years, 10 years? I mean, how long should you, how old or how recent should your literature search be?
This terrain.
Hello.
Did you get my question?
Yeah, I got a question. Thank you, Judith. So one thing about going back in research is it does not have time. But one thing is when you're doing the literature review, you have to be very, very detailed of the findings you've gotten. So you can go as far as possible, but don't forget you have a word limit. So you don't expect to bring everything in literature, no. But there's a way you can show a gradient. And this is why I will talk about something again in policy brief. One thing about policy brief, you don't need to express everything in words. We also have a point that we prefer using facts and figures. You can create a table to summarize most of these points in figures, even pictures. This also makes it a safe space than putting words. So you can go as far as date back to prove that, though, this has how the thing has been deteriorating over time and has not improved. And you can represent them very well in graphs, figures, yeah. So it's fine.
Thank you. Oh, your hand was up. Do you still want to ask your question, or you save it for later?
No, she answered the question already, so let's move on, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so now let's go to the structure of a policy brief. This is where we talk about how to write a policy brief. And one thing I noticed in my course of study is this structure is not always the same everywhere. Many people come up with different structures. Like I would say I have 2 different profs who taught me policy writing hand. No, even 3, because there was time I did policy in African wildlife. And I noticed that there were differences in the structure, but then we still want to achieve the same aim. But one thing was that most of these things were repetitive, like they usually occur in one or the other, but they might not be placed where you were supposed to see them. But then, okay, let's move to the structure. We have the introduction, which covers your title, your policy audience, communication objective, your summary or overview. So you can see the summary someplace or overview in other place. We have the background, yeah. We have the key messages, the research findings, implications, recommendations, and conclusion. Now, when we talk about the title, when you're talking of a title, you have to be very specific. Like you don't just come and say a title with different sentences, no. First of all, when you want to give a policy brief a title, you have to make sure it is very, very captivating. You know, when you want to write an article and you want to put that introduction, you know how you try to make people to get their attention. Yeah, so this is what you do in the title. It must be short and captivating and must be able to express the exact thing you want to do at that particular time, or whether the issue you are really interested in. So you don't need to put the words in the title. No. Make sure it is well structured, expressing what you want to do. Now I talk about the policy audience too. When you say the policy audience, this is the questions you'll be asking. These are the people you want to tell, you want to give them the policy brief. You want them to make an action, just like when I talked about the yes. So those people you want to give your policy brief to, those are the policy audience, and you list them in the policy for them, which I will still show you the document. Then okay, we have the communication objectives. The communication objective is talking about, okay, what are the objectives you want to pass on, which I will still show you how it is still structured. This is also the summary or the overview. Like I said, in the summary section, you just talk about, you summarize the content. That is like you give an overview of what the policy brief contains in terms of, okay, why is the issue important, the highlights. You know, when you write a paper and you know how the abstract looks like. Yeah, so this is what is in the summary. Then you come to the background. The background is like, see, like when you're writing an academic paper, you know how the introduction usually look like, right? You just give a brief intro of the situation, the context. Yeah, so this is what the background looks like. And then it's just like you state what has been done. Like, okay, I said, explain why the issue is important, the context where it is happening, previous research, and so on here. Now, the key findings is, one thing you have to know is it must be easy to understand. The key messages, rather, sorry. When you're writing your key messages, I will show you the document. Is a kind of a section whereby you highlight them. They're usually a point. They don't have to be crowded. And these key messages, most times, most policymakers, when they take a policy document, after reading the title, going through the maybe the introduction, they immediately go to the key messages, because these messages tell them, okay, what is this person trying to pass to me? Because this place is like that's the place you're trying to, that's the message you are actually telling the person. And it must be easy to understand, give details about the social problem, identify from the research findings, and they are highlighted. So you have to make sure you are very careful in this key message area. You have to be very, very straightforward, concise also. You can say one thing about this policy documents, that most times you just have to be very simple, very clear, very concise. So you don't need to bring big words or grammar. Now the key findings. Now after that we go to the key findings. In the key findings, okay, I can see Paul hand is raised up.
Yeah, thank you. Just because this is a trainee, so I just need to understand some things. I just want to ask, like, what's the place of stakeholder engagement in policy brief? Like, do we have to engage some, like, okay, we want to send the policy brief to the policy makers. Like, maybe what we want to write the policy brief on, maybe there are some people that such, how will I say it now? Such policy brief we address, like, okay, this set of people are facing this kind of thing. Can we just generate our data, or maybe everything we need from the literature? Or do we have to engage these stakeholders in putting down what they are actually experiencing before summarizing everything in the policy brief? I don't know if you get my question.
Oh, okay. You're asking me if, for example, you have a community who is suffering from flood, and you want to make a policy brief advocating for something to be done to them. So you need to, you're asking me if it's important to like engage those communities to get information from them, right?
Yep, you get it.
Okay, so yeah, so one thing is, that is another way. That's because you want to help them. Now, this is not your issue. This is their issue. And one thing about this is that you won't be able to report this issue perfectly like them. So this is where stakeholder engagement comes, because they are part of your stakeholders. And don't forget, they will also be part of your policy audience. So what the thing you have to do is you engage these people even before you start your policy. You have to engage them. You have to meet them. I don't know if probably is a community. You have to look for the community leader, because that's how it works. You talk with the community leader. You tell them your intentions and how you want to be of help to them. So from then you can then do your proper survey, your research findings, like, oh, what get damaged, what are they suffering from, and when you get these findings, which is just, this is what we call primary data, because this is not secondary data anymore, which is very real and realistic. So it's very, very important. And this is to make it even more easier to be able to say, yes, you had a direct contact with them. So yeah, you can, this is the best way. You first engage them before then drafting the policy brief and then sending to the policy audience. So you don't just do it without their context, because sometimes when people do things outside people's context, they might raise an issue. You don't know, maybe somebody in the community is benefiting from whatever they are going through. So you always have to like take permission before advocating for somebody.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Are there any more questions, or I can proceed?
I can quickly ask this. So
okay.
You talked about having an introduction and having a background, and for me, they look similar. Could you differentiate between these two, having the introduction and also the background?
Yeah, I was expecting that. Can you see from where I said introduction? This arrow is different in the sense that the title, the policy audience, communication objectives, summary, overview, or background, they all make the introduction. So it's not like you're writing an introduction. It's just like, I called it like a section, hey, like a part just introducing the policy brief. So it's not like an introduction. So don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I get it now. It wasn't so obvious. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So other can understand. Okay, so the key findings, right? So when we talk about the key findings, yeah, one thing again in policy briefing, your key findings, you divide your findings into, okay, after I have done a research now, and I did a research and I noticed that, like I was making an example about people with the flood. I noticed that, okay, the impact of this flood is causing death. Okay, there is mortality. There is possibly structures collapsing and all that. So one thing is, when you are doing your key findings, you put them in subsections. You don't just put a key findings all jammed together. No, you should have an idea of how to separate your key findings according to their subtopics. Group similar findings together, and when talking about these findings, make sure you use facts, like, okay, 10% of those people were injured, 50%, or just use numbers. You can even use graphs, or just like I said, include tables or graphs to support your findings, or even pictures, because this helps you to make your work look neater and not so clumsy and big. Okay. The other one is the recommendation, I guess. No, sorry. Oh, explain the research findings. That's the policy implications now. Now, these sections, you're trying to now talk about, you've made some findings, you've talked about, okay, this is the findings of the, like, okay, let me go back from here. We've talked about the introduction part, summary overview, and blah, blah, the key messages. Now you talk about the key findings. Now, these things you have found, if we don't do them, what will happen? Yeah, so I say that this section answers so what questions, like, what does this mean for the research? Like, you have to tell them that, see, you have to do this, because if we don't put this in place, some things are going to happen. What are the things we need to address? Like, you have to talk about the effects that will make people be like, oh, or to make them have action, to be able to make to do something about that issue. So yeah, that was one about the policy implications, just to let them know the so what questions, like they have to make sure they take an action concerning the issue. Then we have the recommendations. Yeah. So in the recommendation is where you now come and say, okay, now you've known the effects of everything. You've known your issue, your title, your issue, your audience, and your messages, your findings. And then you've known what is the so what question if you don't understand. So for you to avoid all these things, what are you bringing to the table? That is your recommendations. So recommendation must flow from the evidence. Don't forget that whatever you are bringing, it must be linked to what your problem, the social problem detected, the findings, and it must actually flow. You can't bring a solution that is not meant for another problem, that is meant for another problem rather. And they must be specific. Don't just give something that is vague. And you must be certain that this is actually possible. Also, you say support it with literatures or experience. So I say everything has to be based on evidence, whereby you don't just come up with one solution, no. And also look at the smart approach here. Like that's the one talk about everything you're bringing must actually be smart, realistic, achievable, you check the timeline and everything. And recommendation must be clearly linked to the evidence you present throughout the brief. Yeah, just like I said, you must make sure whatever you are doing flows. They shouldn't be fragmented. You can't bring a problem in pollution and the solution you are bringing or recommendation is linked to maybe something for let me say climate change or so. No. They must all work together. So that is one thing about policy-based recommendation. And then after all this, well done, you can conclude. Conclusion does not need to be much. One thing about conclusion is just very brief. But one thing is you have to just make sure you remind the reader that action is needed. Remind the reader that it is very important they get back to you. And like saying, okay, look forward to meeting them, your contacts and some other things. So it's very important to make sure you conclude and it's brief. So one thing again I said, yeah, it's policymakers are very busy people. Yeah, one thing about policy brief is you are writing a policy brief to the government, to the policymakers, to people in power, ministries. And you can imagine they have many problems they are dealing with. They're always busy. So imagine you get a document that is like about 10 pages and you want them to read it. They will just skim through and dump it somewhere. So you don't need to bore them. You don't need to give them Greek grammar or tell them you want to teach them English. So what you have to do is to make it so simple as possible, attractive, very interesting, very short and easy to read. So this will actually help them, because when you bore them and just the policy will just hang up in the decks over there. They can even use it maybe to eat whatever they want to do. So when you're writing a policy brief, you have to take in all this into consideration. But one thing I know you have to do is make sure it's very, very clear, short, easy to read. You don't bore them, don't use big grammars, make it simple as possible, because they are not specialists. Your government, your ministers, most of them are not even from, they don't have those background. So you have to put that in mind to make it simple. Okay. I don't know if there's any question before I talk about it.
Okay, our trainer has opened this session now for questions. Shola for Solaf, I'm sorry if I murdered that name. Please go ahead and ask a question.
Thank you very much for the lecture. My question is this. Since you said, well, there are some briefs that we can publish, I want to ask this. Why find this on some evidence? Like, okay, take for example, I want to write a policy brief on flooding in Nigeria. And you know, there are some let me say, okay, maybe in the news, there are some news that they will say, when you are trying to get your figures and facts, maybe you just listen to news and they said in Enugu state, in Lokoja state, certain percent, maybe 50% of property were lost, something like that. If you want to put it in your own policy brief, how are you going to reference, or is it a must to reference the findings?
Okay, thank you for that question. I even skipped referencing. One thing you have to do in policy brief, you must reference your source. You can't just put on a policy brief without referencing. I'm going to show you an example later on. In a policy brief, you're writing, you have to, like I said, you have to reference, no matter where you get it from. There was a time I was writing a policy brief and I had to reference, yeah. Then it was not even a journal, but it was on a normal Google website. I had to make sure I referenced that document. And we know these days we have different type of referencing. So we use in policy brief, the kind of reference we use is different. It's kind of this the superscript type. I'm going to show you how it's being done. So there is no how when you're writing a policy brief, you must make sure it is being referenced. You can't escape that, because you are actually giving this document to somebody and they don't want to believe that you bring it from the blues. They want to be sure that yes, you got it from somewhere. So it has to be referenced. Even if you interviewed somebody, you make sure the person's name is there. It has to be referenced.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know if there is any question. I would like to show you the document I was talking about. Okay, this is actually a document. I don't know, I'm gonna share this document. So you can all have access to it. Though it's from my school, so I can still share it. Okay, it's if you're really interested in policy brief and policy writing, this is a document that can also help you to learn more about policy. It talks about types of policy brief. It gives examples, how to write a policy brief. So yeah, I can share this document very soon. I'll put it in the chat box. Also, I wanted to show you a document I submitted here. This was my in water policy in Clemson in Nigeria. I wrote a policy brief about okay, this is it. Implementing water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities and practice among school children in Makoko Slum Community, Lagos State. So this policy brief was actually to implement WASH, that's water, sanitation, and hygiene. I looked at the Makoko community as a community that, yes, even despite they have, you know, this, I'm sure we are all familiar with Makoko community and what they are facing in terms of lack of sanitation and hygiene. So I tried to advocate for Makoko community. I look at my policy audience. I said, this policy targets the Lagos State Government Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Health, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, and Ministry of Finance. Because I believe that these policy people, which are these ministries, they have the power to take my policy brief far. That when I give them this policy brief, in return, they'll be able to make, and I've expressed my grudges, I've expressed how I feel, they'll be able to do something about this issue. This is why I gave this policy to them. Now, my communication objective, and I said, this policy brief is to inform the aforementioned policy audience, that is the audience above, on the limited access school children in the Makoko space, that is the children in Makoko that they are facing. And I said, therefore, immediate action must be performed or taken. The recommended steps in this policy brief can aid in the establishment of WASH facilities and practices in the Makoko community. That is, I believe that whatever I have said here, if it is taken, it's going to be established. Yes, Mr. Paul.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I just want to call your attention to it that we can't see the document you're talking about. The screen we are seeing is the
Your slides also.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah, I was
sorry.
going to say that.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, let me give you some time to look at it before I continue. You can look at the title and the policy audience and at the communication objective. Okay, can I continue now? Okay, I was saying the communication objective. So I believe that if what I'm saying, this communication objective, that I believe that when this policy brief is being followed by my audience, that is going to be successful. Now going to the overview, like I said, it's just like a summary, like the abstracts. You can see what I read. I said Nigeria is faced with inadequate provision of water, that is WASH, and Makoko community, which is a slum in Lagos State. The school children do not have access to a knowledge of WASH facilities. Although several research has been done, media platforms have raised awareness of this issue, but then nothing has been done. No efforts. So children of Makoko engage in risky WASH practices out of helplessness, affecting education, causing waterborne diseases such as typhoid, cholera, hepatitis, diarrhea, death in severe cases. So this policy brief recommends that the above mentioned policy audience immediately consider the necessary actions provided in the brief to address the issue. Now look at my background. You can see it's not even much, it's just short. So all these things don't need to be wordy, but then just pass your message. Background is just about, I'm talking about the Nigeria is one of several African countries off track from the SDG goals, and we lack sanitation. I'm not talking about the context in this case, and I talked about the Makoko community. That's just the background, telling them what is happening there. Okay, in terms of the statistics also, I talked about what has been done and how the children, I believe you're reading through. Does the children living in Makoko slum have vulnerable to this infection, and what is happening to the children? Okay, I even mentioned the bacteria. I said, however, several research findings have been carried out to raise awareness, but no action has been taken. and okay, presented a high SQK color. So that is just like, it's still almost related to even the overview, but this is just a summary of everything. And this is like a better one, given the context of from Nigeria. It's not like ingredients, you are introducing where these things is happening, the contents, what is happening there. Any questions so far? Now, this is the key messages. One thing about these key messages, sometimes when you're writing a policy brief, you don't just write everything according to how they're aligned. Yeah, when I was writing policy brief, I had to pause on these key messages because you need to be very concise. Don't forget that whatever you want to put in your key messages, what those policy audience want to know that, yes, this is the particular problem. So one thing you do most times in policy brief, you first go to your research findings. Because when you'll be able to know what is going on, you can write what you want to pass. So sometimes this is just the arrangement, but then it does not mean you are starting from the key messages. So when I got to this stage, I had to go to my research findings. And so based on literature, I checked. I noticed that most of the findings, you can see what I talked about, dividing them into groups. It can say, I said 4 schools out of 25 schools in Makoko area were randomly selected. This is a paper on its own because I did not do this research. So this is a literature. And I'm going to support my claim that please let them be wash facilities in Makoko community. And I said, I'm not trying to report the paper now, saying 4 schools out of 25 schools in Makoko area were randomly selected. These were the schools. And then look at the findings. And don't forget, you can see I referenced this. Can you see the kind of referencing I did? This type of referencing. So from the research findings, I had to put them in sub-headings. My first findings was drinking water practices, sanitation practices, and hygiene practices. Then I explained what are linked to each of them. Okay, I said, okay, in drinking water, there is no connected public water system, blah, blah. They don't have full knowledge of safe drinking water. They could only identify unsafe water. I was basically reporting what is in that literature because I didn't do this, it's not my work. And I had to reference it, which I have done here. Another finding was the sanitation practices in sense of there was no sanitation practices in that Makoko community, which is affecting the children. They lack toilets, facilities. One was like, okay, response, no soap and all that. And also the hygiene practices also. I noticed that also that they don't know they don't have a good level of hygiene. It's very low. They find it hard to even wash their hands after the toilets, no water. So these were the things I was also reporting. Then after I got this, I've known that 3 problems are particular in terms of drinking, sanitation, and hygiene. So I can draft my key message. Okay, students have poor knowledge of what is the definition of safe drinking water. So they cannot describe a good toilet as they have not been opportune to see one. So they cannot carry out proper hygiene practice due to lack of water. This is my own definition. Another person might take these research findings and draft it another way, but might still be passing the same key messages. So it just depends on how you can craft a message. You can strike people to like read it and say, oh, wow, student does not have, how do you believe student does not understand what safe water looks like or what it means? That is bad because how would this will be very detrimental to their health. Oh, student cannot even describe a good toilet. Wow, that is bad. Oh, student cannot even know what is hygiene. So it depends on how we can craft our key messages based on these research findings. Is there any question so far?
Not from the chat. There's no question so far, but this is really, really insightful. Yeah.
So then you can add a picture. I added a picture here to show instead of, okay, I noticed I didn't put some in this document. There is no much facts or numbers for this one, so I use pictures for this. So these are pictures. I showed a picture to back up my evidence that, okay, I saw this is a dirty water and a boy is swimming in this water. Imagine this is not a literature review and I went for this research myself. I will take this picture myself and I'll post that, yes, this is the first-hand information I got them myself, that this guy is swimming in the dirty water. But still, this is also a secondary data and it's still real because it's published. So, and I can back it up with my references. this is a boy washing in a polluted water. And also, this is the street of Makoko. You can see how it looks like, because nobody will want to live, I'm sorry to say, though, this kind of street. And that's why it's not appealing. We are urging the government, the policy people, the ministry to do something about it. And through this, we are expressing our, how would I put it, we're expressing our feelings, our wants and action, urgent action to be done. Now we move to the policy implications. This is when I said it. I said, okay, this is so what questions. Like, okay, well, I've told you everything about the problem. I've told you the issues. I've told you the key findings, the key messages. Now, what is it? Findings are shown that inadequate wash facilities and fewer wash parties among students of the community. Okay, I'm trying to tell them, although these students were feeling knowledgeable about the importance of wash, they actually indulge in risky wash practices out of helplessness. Lack of wash facilities and practice affect children education costs, waterborne. Now you can see I'm telling them what is the effect of what this thing is costing. Like, okay, the effects of the lack of wash facilities is giving them waterborne diseases, typhoid, cholera, hepatitis. I'm trying to tell them the so what of this problem, and then the need for us to have a sustainable wash facilities, which is very important. One thing again I would like to say about policy briefs. In policy brief, I don't want you to mind if you're repeating words. When you're repeating words, it's a sign of yes, you are actually very serious about that word, because I asked that question, because I noticed that sometimes as if you're answering some questions over and over again. No. But then you have to still ring it in their ears, like, so that when they read it, it stays like in their brain, like this is what this person is trying to pass. And that's why you have to be consistent all through. You don't need to introduce another kind of messages. Yeah, I'm talking about wash. I don't need to come and put maybe food supply. No, I don't need to put something else. I have to just continue with that particular thing. Even if there's a repetition about a particular thing, it's fine, because it makes it bring in that this is what this person is passionate about. And then when we're done with the policy implications, we move to the recommendation, like I said. Now you can say I have 3 recommendations. I look at my key messages are also 3. So this is when you know that whatever you are showing as your problem must align with your recommendations. You don't bring a recommendation that does not align to the problem. I can't have a problem here and bring another problem here, another solutions in my recommendation. No, you make sure they align. And you can see here I said about water, hygiene, and the toilets. Now look at my recommendation. I talked about the Lagos State Ministry of Finance, the Lagos State Environment should construct at least 50 boreholes in schools and community by a specific date. This is where the smart approach comes in. Normally, this is a literature review. If it was a research, I would have been very sure that whatever I'm recommending must be certain to work. Because this is just a literature review, so I had to just put in something, although it's like, yes, I'm putting myself in the position that this should be able to work. But if it was a pure research, I will know that, yes, I have to be very sure of whatever I'm recommending, that even the government does this, it has to work. It must be achievable. It must be realistic. Okay, I also said that this said that my policy audience should construct 50 public toilets in schools and community by this date. And I said also they should also have sensitization programs to the children of Makoko on the importance of good wash practices. So you can see that these recommendations are actually aimed at solving the problems I mentioned. Because when these recommendations are in place, the issues, the social issues I talked about are going to be solved. That is what I believe from what I have done. That is based on my research, but this is literature, not my research. So based on my findings on literature, I believe these things should work for the problems. And then I conclude. I said the policy brief justify the urgent need for wash facilities and practice among children of Makoko community. Why the school needs to make efforts towards providing students with wash facilities in schools, it is urgently required that the above mentioned policy audience take action to implement wash facilities. and practices in the schools and community to prevent waterborne disease and death. You can see that I keep on mentioning some things, like I repeat the policy audience, take actions. It's just to make that thing in their head that yes, you have to do something about what is happening. I talked about what they are facing, their disease, something has not been done. So this is just how a simple policy brief looks like. Although you can see some other policy brief later on, which are, this is just, as I call it, it's just an intro, not like the big aspects. So just to let you know what it entails, the headline, and how you can just simply draft a policy brief. So in essence, policy brief is just making people aware of a situation, or should I say a social issue that you are very particular about, and you want something to be done about the issue. You want to give people interest. You want to advocate for something you are worried about. One way you can do that is policy brief. But reminded that when doing this, make sure your issue is very current, like I said, is of interest to people, not just an issue that is not of interest, an issue that can get people to take action. So I don't know if there is any question. Yeah, that's
The floor is okay. I don't know if you want to open your floor now for questions or you still have some more slides, but I could quickly drop some questions for you. I don't want to be the only one or one of the people asking the most questions. Please, ladies, ask questions if there are areas that are not clear to you. But I will ask now. So what is, now you mentioned that this problem, you should do a thorough research and report your research findings and all of that. What if you're tossed with a situation where you notice a problem, but this problem is not well documented? There are situations in Nigeria, for example, that are not well documented. You don't have statistics, you don't have data, but these problems exist. So how do you report these kind of things in your policy brief?
Okay, in that kind of scenario, are you talking about maybe a kind of new problem, or you want to investigate the problem? Then I believe in that scenario, you will do your own survey and make sure from your survey, you have to take your own facts. There's a way you can take your facts, maybe probably recording some pictures, yeah, of whatever you are seeing, and you can also display them. I feel picture is the right way to show whatever, or maybe the statistics or the survey you do. So I don't know if I answer your question. Even if the problem is new, just make sure that you have a way to prove to people that you did that research yourself, and you tell them this is what you did.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And the second one, not so related, but we are talking about policy brief being a document to address or to escalate a social problem, right? So what if there's this problem, maybe not really a social problem, but then it indirectly affects the society? Do you get what I mean? How do you, okay, for example, I know that when soils are we are talking about water here, but let me use soil, for example. You know that when soils are contaminated, they can, in the end, get into the food chain and affect those who feed on the food grown on those contaminated soils.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of an indirect problem, so to speak. How do you go about something like this also?
Yeah, but at the long run, it's affecting humans, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so since the long run effect is to affect humans, or you want to advocate that something be done, you can still do a policy brief. You just be sure of what your research is and how to report your policy brief, basically your evidence. Prove to us that there's an effect in this thing and what should be done, giving us something innovative, something good, or something that yes is realistic and achievable. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, someone is asking for the material you want to drop in the chat, but maybe we can send to them using their emails. I think we have the emails. I don't know how that can work. Or if you can share in the chat, no problem also.
I need to share it.
Mr. Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, just like an addendum to the question you just asked, like a policy brief, because there was a time like there was a protest in a way in Canada by some group of researchers, and they were saying like, oh, you are not funding us as a good researcher that we are. Like the funding is too low. Like, can we write a policy brief to the government and tell the government like, oh, see, these people, they are doing well, fund their research. Is it really like as Judith has asked, like, okay, yeah, it's social related stuff that we write policy brief on, but this also, it has to do with the government, it has to do with the policy maker, like, okay, how many percent of the budget is going to research, and these people are protesting. Can a policy brief be written on that?
Definitely. You can write a policy bit. So far you are advocating an issue, and it's also pertaining to we, just like what you said, at the end, you can definitely write a policy brief for that. I hope you get me.
Yeah, but just a follow-up question again. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to ask, like, okay, what's really does collaboration makes policy brief to be much more better? Like, let's say I have collaboration with other person that I know is into the field also. Like, maybe does it make my message or our message to be heard more than me just sitting down, me that nobody know me from anywhere before? I'm just a researcher doing my stuff, and then I just write the policy brief and send it to the government. If I collaborate with maybe someone, does it really make any difference?
Okay, that question is tricky, but then I would say it depends on who you are collaborating with. For example, let's say I know him, Tinubu's daughter, for example, and she's into like we have a kind of particular field together. Me collaborating with her at that point is very good because I know she has legs. When I mean legs, in policy making, we have something we call lobbying. Yeah, because I believe she can lobby for me. She can help me get to the place I cannot get to. So when you are trying to collaborate with somebody, you should know that, oh, that means there's something you want to get from that particular person. But in the case whereby it's just a normal person like me and you want to collaborate with me, then we have to struggle together to get far because we don't know anybody. So that's what I would say. Yeah. So, but when the person you're collaborating with has some kind of connection, then it makes some sense to collaborate. But then also you can look from another angle, like two heads are better than one, because you don't know who I know and who you know, who can help us to make our issue get to where we want it to get to. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I was thinking about sharing a document. Please, I'm coming. Screenshots. Stop sharing.
Ms. Tosin, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Are you saying this slide you shared with us now is a sample of how a policy brief should look like?
Yes, this was one of, this is just like a simple way it should look like, because this was one I did in school. This was was it second, yeah, the first or second policy brief, yeah. We actually submitted, I actually wrote the heading, is actually my grading policy brief. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Interesting.
And some people are asking in the chat if it's possible to get your slides.
Yeah, I'm trying to drop it though. I don't know what is wrong.
Okay.
That's what I want to do.
Or is it possible to, okay, if you can get it done, it's good. But if not, maybe we can share via their emails. How possible would that be? The emails of those in attendance today.
Oh, okay. Maybe the email will be better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna forward the slides for today, and also the documents I showed you earlier, the PDF document on how a policy brief should look like here. But I'm not sending my example. That's personal. Yeah. So just the slides, I'll send them. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. And a final question from me. I don't know if any other person wants to ask. So we've been talking a lot about writing policies and all of that. I just want to ask, if you don't have the answer to this one, there's no problem. But what's the percentage success of a policy brief being implemented? Because for me, I like it when action is being taken. It's not just about putting out issues or pointing out issues. It's also good when action is being taken. So like, what's the percentage success that you know about policy briefs that have been written in so many years, I would say?
Okay, the question is very, very, I never expected that question. But then to be realistic, very, very realistic. One thing I've come to notice, because I wouldn't lie, I had something similar to that question before, was I've come to know that in Africa, let me use the context of Africa, things are very, very slow. I'm not saying policy brief does not bring about some information. Yeah, it does, but to be realistic, I would say it's still very, very low, because we have many issues now in Africa. Issues like corruption. Even when you know something is wrong, we don't want to admit it's wrong. We don't want to do it. And people lobby for things a lot. That is what is the willing game in Africa. So sincerely, policy brief in context of Africa, the percentage of the success is still low. But I believe over time, probably when people start changing, the truth is now coming. Yeah. So maybe we start seeing differences in policy brief having a success. Yeah. Because I believe in power of policy brief when we are actually true and everybody is trying to advocate, but it's a pity where we'll find ourselves. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought so too, because a lot of things have been written, reviews, a lot of documents have been put out, but then it's just like nothing has been done.
Just like what you said, to say something, you can see the Makoko issue I said. I wrote it in the document. I said a lot of policy briefs have been done, but then nothing has been. A lot of policy briefs have been prepared, but nothing has been done. Because when I go online, I see many things on that issue, but then still, it's still like repeating and repeating. And these people are seeing the same issues, but they're not doing anything. So it's just what it is.
Yeah, I hope things change and things get better. And yes, we have all learned. For me, it's the first exposure to policy brief, and I really am grateful I was here. I have taken down notes, and yeah, I've learned a lot today. Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge with us.
Thank
Reactions from our audience, if you know you really got value for your time here today, please send some love using the reactions in the chats. And in case you have questions. Okay, please go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the feedback form. I would like to know what the audience feel. I don't know if they've shared the feedback form before they.
No, it's not shared yet. I think we're gonna communicate it to them through the email, and through that we can send the documents that you couldn't send now also. So
Okay.
just the master to get two birds together.
All right. Thank you so much.
Look out for it in your email. You will receive an email just to know what your was your expectation met and every other thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, like Vivi has said, and it was I mean, my time here was really, really well spent, and I'm really appreciative of you sharing your knowledge with us and even going far to share your work with us. And I hope nobody took screenshots of that though. Yeah, it's very personal. And I hope everyone will be here tomorrow. And please, if you know others that have registered for this training, please tell them the knowledge you gained today and how well you liked today's session, and try to bring them tomorrow. Make them remember that there is another training tomorrow. I think tomorrow will be for the data analysis, if I'm correct. So everyone who is a data analyst or a data enthusiastic like me, please try to be here tomorrow to learn one or two things. Even if you've been into data analysis, you can still grab some knowledge tomorrow. There's no knowledge that goes to waste. So yeah, thank you. It's a wrap for today. I want to wish you all a good night rest. You want to say something, Miss Sarah?
Yeah, in case there is any question, you can reach me on my email and on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
I sent it to them.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I dropped the email in the chat. I don't know if they saw it. I dropped it earlier. So you could just go through the chat to copy her email. I dropped it.
Yeah, Madam Sarah, from your presentation, the last slide, I think you talked about people writing the policy brief and sending it to your email, but you didn't mention it at all.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I skipped. I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay, yes. There was actually supposed to be a practical exercise. Thank you, Mr. Paul. The practical exercise is just for me to see how far I've been able to, should I say, convince you to write a policy brief. Yeah, I want to see maybe you'll be able to develop some. I know it's not something you can master once in a while. Like I said, policy writing is, the more you write, the more you know how it gets better. So I wanted to see a practical exercise. You write a policy brief of an issue you are interested in. Then just pick a topic of your own, and from what I've shown you here, just develop a policy brief and you can send to my email and I can give my feedbacks here. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you for being so generous with your time on that. I hope everyone here will say something. It's in the chat. I can copy and send. Hold on a minute. I dropped it in the chat earlier. Wait, let me copy again. Okay, here. It's now in the chat again. You can send the email to her if you've been able to come up with your policy brief. Okay, if there are no more questions, I guess would call it a night. And thank you again for your attendance and your participation. It was nice having you all here, and it was a great privilege to have moderated this session. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Madam Sarah. See you all tomorrow.
Yeah.